Hey everyone, welcome to a special episode of the Immersive Medical Podcast, where we were recording live from SimGHOSTS 2023 in Omaha, Nebraska, and I just got back a little while ago.
Yeah, I was not there to join Devin, but Devin, how'd it go? Were you super busy? Did you get any sleep?
Did not get a lot of sleep, and yeah, we were super busy. So I was running the VR patients booth with a couple of their subject matter experts doing the VR simulation and talking to people, and I set up a couple mics on a table nearby, and just anyone who wanted to chat about nursing, simulation, the problems they're facing, they decided to sit down. And so we had about 4 people come and sit down and talk with us. And man, we had some really interesting conversations. So we have strung those together today for you to give you one nice episode in 4 little chunks. And that's what we're gonna play for you today.
So Devin, what's the kind of background on these people? This wasn't pre-planned, right? We were going to set up some microphones and just talk to people, right? It was all improv.
Yeah, totally wasn't planned. So the background, one of them is a standardized patient who also does the VR simulation for her organization. And a standardized patient, if you don't know, is someone who pretends to be sick. Maybe you put moulage or cuts on their arms, or she'll tell a story during the episode of how she was pretending to be a pregnant patient and had like a pregnant bodysuit on, and then gave birth to a real little like rubber baby, which is insane. We had another person come just looking for a solution for their college, and then they wanted to talk about what they've been facing. One person was already a customer of VR Patients and was talking about how they're using it and the problems that they're solving with it. And another one was just a sim tech who was like, "This is the first time I've seen this, and let's talk about it. Let me learn about this, and let me tell you the challenges I'm facing." It was really interesting.
So I heard there was a guy that came by from Stormont Vale Health.
Oh yeah,
Heard he stopped by with a very specific question. Do you want to get into that before we
Yeah.
get into the interviews?
Sure. Yeah, I'll give you a little teaser. His name is Jeremy Brewer. He's awesome from Stormont Vale Health, and he brought to the table a scenario. So he came to SimGHOSTS looking for, I don't know. He's like, I don't know exactly what I'm looking for, but I'm going to bring with me a written scenario that we use at our simulation center or for our nurses to see if anyone can do this. Can you do this in this simulation? And so I think he was looking for something virtual reality, digital related,
vetting all the VR aspects.
Yeah. So he came to our booth and he handed it to Paul, who's the sim builder, right? Our subject matter expert and that head of product. And he handed him the scenario and went, "Hey, this is a nursing scenario that we use to teach our students. Can your system do this?" And Paul, I think he like took a photo of it or something and said, "If you want, we can build this right now." And his eyes lit up and he said, "Well, I don't want to be late for the keynote." And Paul's like, "Go to the keynote. When you get back, it'll be ready." And sure enough, an hour later, he came back and the whole scenario was built. So the guy came by with a piece of paper, end to end, a written scenario, which is traditional sim, gave it to Paul. And when he came back after his keynote that he went to listen to, he was in VR, seeing that patient realized from paper into digital. And that was like his jaw hit the floor, and then he sat down to talk with us. And so you're going to get to hear his little plan and his reaction to it. It's pretty cool.
It doesn't get more agile than that, does it?
No, and look, just to be clear, Paul's not a game developer. He's a nurse educator and a flight nurse, right? He teaches at Michigan State, I think.
Of which you guys all remember from the first episode, I believe.
Yeah, he was the flight. Exactly. So Paul on episode 1 was our flight nurse that we interviewed. And so, yeah, we're talking just a normal guy. 2 normal guys sat down together and made VR. It's amazing.
That's awesome.
We should kick this off. What do you say?
Yeah, go for it.
So thank you, everyone, for listening. And please enjoy this special episode at the SimGHOSTS, recorded live at the SimGHOSTS conference in Omaha, Nebraska. Hey, welcome back to the Immersive Medical Pod. We have a very special guest with us today, and I just met you. What's your name again?
Jeremy Brewer.
Jeremy Brewer. Can you tell our audience where you're from and why you're here?
Sure. I am from Stormont Vale Health in Topeka, Kansas. It's a level 2 trauma center and a teaching hospital. We have an immersive, we have a sim lab. We're working on building out to the future and expanding for the future. And so that's kind of why I'm here, is to see and experience all these new technologies and to kind of see where the direction of sim in general is going to go, so that we can kind of be up with the times and make sure that we're providing not only current but relevant education for our people.
So a question that I was really hoping to ask you here on the pod, because a lot of our listeners are engaged with how do we solve big problems in healthcare, and what challenges are other EDUs facing, or institutions facing, or hospitals facing. So I would just kind of toss the question your way. So when it comes to challenges in healthcare and challenges in simulating for solutions to solve those problems, what challenges are you facing?
Well, several, but we've got not necessarily applicable to our hospital, but there are a lot of hospitals out there that experience med errors. I think partially it's because of a lack of experience on staff, and of course you can't just go out and cut people up and just to make sure that you get more comfortable with doing things like that.
That's correct.
So simulation takes a front seat, and we actually have a nurse residency program for new nurses and for experienced nurses that come through to change and go to higher acuity areas. We want to make them as comfortable as possible. So what we do is we run through intense simulations, and we put them in those situations, and not necessarily so that they will make mistakes, but make it a safe environment so that, if and when they do make mistakes, it becomes more of a learning opportunity. And we feel like, especially us at the hospital, feel like that kind of improves patient outcomes.
Absolutely.
And that's what we're all about. I mean, that's basically why Sim exists, is because we want to make sure we are improving patient outcomes and that, safer environment for everybody to go to the hospital. So,
yeah, absolutely.
So.
Well, that's awesome. So just a quick question.
Yeah.
You popped by the VR Patients booth today, and you had a little bit of a unique experience, I noticed.
It was pretty cool.
So can you tell me, you dropped by and you dropped off a piece of paper, then you left. So what happened?
So I came earlier. Yeah, I came in earlier, and I asked just generally about simulations and about different scenarios. And Paul was really cool about, he said, well, if you've got any kind of scenario, we can build it. And I wasn't sure, so I kind of prepared for the conference prior. I was like, well, if we're going to work on, scenarios, I want to make sure that I'm being relevant. So I brought a few scenarios from
that's clever.
teaching, just to kind of have material to do. And I said, we've got a couple of different programs. I brought just a generalized scenario that our educators had come up with that we use regularly, and handed it to Paul, and they built it for me in VR, and I just got done experiencing it, which was really amazing, honestly.
How long did that take?
So
you handed him a piece of paper and you left for the keynote, the plenary or something like that?
Yes, about 2 hours.
About 2 hours you came back. Yeah. And Paul, just so the audience knows, he's a flight nurse. He's our manager of the nursing product, so he's well acquainted with the system, but he's not a gaming engineer or a coder. It's this drag and drop node-based logic.
Yeah. Which is good, because, I'm a little bit techie, and I love tech, but I'm not always really, I'm not that advanced, nowhere near.
Yeah, that's all right.
And I'm one of the people that, when we go back to the hospital, is in charge of kind of helping to build the scenarios.
Yeah.
And so, these subject matter experts, because I'm not a nurse, and so the subject matter experts, they give me, all the stuff from their experience and through all of the the education that they've received and all that stuff, and they hand these things to me, and I'm just gonna put it to a mannequin or put it to a certain set of software. So these guys doing that, it's
so we call that the dyad model, where you have a clinical expert and then an operations expert, and the two together can make some serious magic.
For sure.
So I just want to clarify, when you came back, what was your experience? You saw video. You saw what did you see?
So
did you actually get to see it in virtual reality and try the patient?
Yeah, I got to do it. I was they sent me in there and the patient was laid down on the bed, gave me all the options, treatment, everything, and all of the options that were all of the learner expectations that were in my scenario that I handed him actually became options on the menu on the screen that I could choose from.
Wow.
So pretty cool.
That's pretty cool, man.
Actually was.
Thank you for your time. where can people find you? Is there anything you want to say about your organization for the audience so they know what you're up to and what your hospital's up to?
Sure. So Stormont Vale Health in Topeka, Kansas. We're, like I said, we're level 2 trauma center. So we do a lot of education and teaching, and that's part of it in order to maintain, the certifications that we have to do. We're on magnet certification, Joint Commission, all that stuff. But just our education department is just full of people who have combined, it's hundreds of years of experience, I'm sure. But they're really helpful and really willing to teach people, and they're just there to, to kind of make sure that other people have success and gain from their experience. So it
sounds like a great place.
They're actually really awesome people. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, and people can feel comfortable then if they're going to go to that hospital that you are helping train those healthcare providers to be better and provide better patient care. So thank you.
No problem. Thank you.
All right. Have a good one.
Thanks.
Okay, let's talk VR patients. Now, these folks, they're not just creating a VR platform. They're revolutionizing medical training. So picture this. You're anywhere in the world, and you just log onto a VR patient's account. Strap on your VR headset or pull up your web browser, and boom, you're in the middle of a high-stakes medical scenario. Sounds like sci-fi, right? But it's as real as it gets. It's like having a futuristic healthcare classroom right in your pocket. Check it out for yourself at vrpatients.com. That's vrpatients.com. Trust me, it's worth a look. Okay, so we're here at SimGHOSTS right now in Omaha, Nebraska.
Yeah.
And this is the Immersive Medical Podcast. And could you were at the VR Patients booth just now, kind of milling about. So Joyce?
Yes.
Could you introduce yourself? Tell us who you are and what do you do?
Yeah, so so happy to be here at SimGHOSTS conference. I am a simulation director in Greenville, South Carolina. My background is a paramedic, been a paramedic since the 90s. So just, seen a lot, but yeah, super glad to be here.
I am also a paramedic.
Yeah.
I was a hospital medic though. So I didn't ride the box for very long.
Yeah.
Yeah, as soon as I delivered my first patient, I wanted to know what happened to him.
Okay.
And my partner was like, that's not our job. And I said, well, I want to go in there. And so then I got a job in the emergency department.
Oh.
And I learned a lot from the doctors.
Oh, yeah.
Mainly, you're a doctor? You're oh boy. Oh, goodness me.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So tell me, so this is the Immersive Medical Podcast. It's kind of like the cross-section of all this immersive technology and then medical. And where do those meet? And are they solving problems or causing problems? And so here's my question for you. As a simulation director in Greenville, what are some of the challenges that you're facing that you're trying to solve?
Yeah, so obviously part of the challenges are patient safety. And when we talk patient safety, we're not just talking about doing further harm to our patient, but we're talking about responding appropriately when we're talking kindness and good bedside manner, because that's kind of a hard thing to teach unless you are actually doing it. So we have that, and then obviously patient safety, we don't want to do further harm, which is...
Yeah, you want them to, leave the hospital in as just good shape as they were before they went
better.
into it. Or better.
Right,
Right,
yes,
exactly.
yeah.
But we don't want to have them be worse if we can help it.
Right. Yeah. So those are, the challenges that we're seeing, and a lot of times our students nowadays are just so used to having electronics that they don't like to focus just on lecture like we've always done, or
like they want more
classroom.
dynamic ways to learn?
That's exactly right.
So how are you responding to that need?
So as a simulation director, that's pretty easy, because that's my job. Is I have mannequins, and they get to come in and they get to do hands-on learning with the mannequins. But then that kind of gets a little bit stale too, because they're these pieces of plastic and just laying on beds, right? And so they're don't
not very
move.
responsive.
Right, exactly right. And they don't respond like a real patient would. Like, are they going to trend if you don't do something right? Are they going to trend if they do something better? Unless we actually program that. And then we want to, the younger generation is so used to playing video games and that kind of thing. We want to try and incorporate that part of what they're used to help them learn in that capacity as well.
Is it hard to, I've never programmed a Sim mannequin before, but the reason I've never programmed one is because it's so hard to get the iPad to sync or whatever tablet that we just fill it with red blood and go, you know what, don't worry about this. We'll talk them through it.
Laerdal mannequins are pretty easy to program. CAE is a little bit more difficult, depending on the version of them. For the most part, it's fairly simple.
How do you do it? Like, can you walk me through step by step how to? If someone listening has never programmed a mannequin, what's it like?
Yeah. So you just open the program and you say first stage.
On the computer?
Yes, on the computer. Yeah. First stage, this is what I want them to do. These are the vitals I want them to have. These are the lung sounds I want them to have. If I want them to say something after 30 seconds, you can program that. Then the second stage, you'll do the same thing. What do I want to have changed? What do I want to stay the same? And then you connect those two with a qualifier. If they give oxygen, then this is what then it moves on to the next step. If they withhold oxygen, then you can move them down to a different kind of step. And then the person who's running the mannequin at that point gets to choose which direction it's going to go.
So I immediately see a scale problem because you're kind of one-to-one. Right? You have one, maybe two students on a mannequin. How many can you fit?
Yeah.
How many can you teach with one mannequin simulation?
Well, there's a difference between how many you can teach properly
how many are watching?
Right, yeah. So, yeah, we try to really keep it at a 5-student capacity just because when you have more than that, they're not going to engage. And oftentimes, even with 5, they're not going to engage. So as a paramedic, we have 2 people in the box. And so that's kind of what we get used to training is, and one person's in charge, and one person just kind of takes the vitals or whatever.
I mean, even in nursing, it's you and the patient.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You may have a CNA or a medic that comes in, or the doctor comes in to give you orders, but at the end of the day, that's your patient.
Yeah.
And you may have 6, maybe nowadays you've got 8.
Yeah.
But you're going room to room.
Right.
And those HIPAA-compliant curtains
Yeah,
allow
exactly.
you to go from room to
Yeah.
room without sharing information.
Yeah. So usually what will happen is, the primary nurse will come in, and then she'll call backup, and then, she'll call the charge nurse, and then, of course, she'll have a doctor. And so that's how they can incorporate all 5 students is they just give them different roles at different times.
Okay, so at first we were just talking about EMS here, but you're a simulation director, so what do you encompass at your location?
We have 9 different health science programs, and I encompass all of them. They all will come through the STAT Center at some point or another.
9 programs.
Yes.
What are they?
Yeah. We have physical therapy assistant, we have occupational therapy, radiology, dental,
Wow.
respiratory, EMS, nursing, yeah.
The whole gamut.
The whole gamut.
So we talked a little bit about current simulation technology, challenges that you're facing. How are you using any new technology? Well, I know, I'm setting you up, right? I know you're using some new technology. Can you tell me about the new technology you're using and you're integrating in your system?
Yeah, so to back up a little bit. So 2 years ago, we incorporated the HoloLens, which is augmented reality. And so that was supposed to kind of be used for the current mannequin that we had, and then rather than just see what's happening on the outside, that augmented reality shows us what's happening on the inside. $10,000 sits in my cupboard.
No.
Yeah.
That's a big paperweight.
It is a big paperweight because the instructors don't know how to incorporate that. And when we did, the students didn't know, do I look at this, what's going on the inside, or do I actually look at the mannequin who's giving birth? And they would much rather put their hands on the mannequin that's giving birth
than reach out at something that doesn't actually exist.
Right. And because it's so expensive, I was the only one who had one, and so in order for them to see it, you have to look away from the mannequin and look at a smart board that projected the image.
I see. And then one person gets to wear the headset.
Which, of course, because $10,000, I was the only one who wore the headset.
And so that's not scalable either.
Not at all.
I'm just going to ask you a question. One of the things we talk about a lot on this podcast is the nursing, CNA, EMS, the shortage, the staffing shortage that's coming.
Yeah.
I mean, there are projections from the World Health Organization that there's going to be a shortage of frontline workers of 15 million in 7 years.
Wow.
In 7 years.
Yeah.
That means that for the next 7 years, we need to produce 2 million more every year just to get close and meet the need.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
are you seeing that or working towards solutions to try to scale up and produce more students faster, or are you facing that or seeing that yet?
So that's kind of out of my realm. I just get to teach what's already there.
Got it.
And the nursing program at the school that I'm at doesn't have a problem with filling their classes. They have a problem with retention.
Of the students?
Of the students.
Like
yeah.
they're dropping out?
Right, because they're failing, or they just decide it doesn't work for them, or something like that.
Wow. Or they watched a TikTok video of some burnt out nurse who quit.
Something, yeah. And so that's kind of part of my job too, is to, if they can get hands-on experience and learn in a way that they can grasp the information, then we have retention, which will get them through the program and get them out into the working force.
So help the audience understand, if you have any techniques, what retention techniques are you using for students?
Yeah, so meeting them where we're at, right? We are no longer auditorial learners. So just by me telling you how to do something, you're not going to get it. We do a lot of writing stuff. Just by me lecturing you and having you write it down, you're not going to get it. The way that we learn best is by hands-on stuff and by incorporating all of our senses so that it works. So again, that's kind of why we invested in the HoloLens, big paperweight. What we're doing now is the virtual reality, through VR Patients is what we're using currently to try and meet the students where they're at with that interactive, immersive patients where they can make mistakes, they can figure out what they did, redo it again. They can do it at home so that they can practice at home, which will help with retention.
So walk me through how you're getting started with this virtual reality technology. Because there's a lot of people out there that don't even know how to, so we use the term, we don't even know how to eat the sandwich. Right?
Yeah.
It's like, wow, this is a lot of new stuff that you're trying to add on to my existing overworked, understaffed, tight timeline.
Yeah, exactly. So one of the benefits is the Oculus is what we can use, and the Oculus is a lot cheaper than my $10,000 HoloLens,
Yeah, you
right?
can get a lot of Oculus for
You
10
really,
grand.
really can. So that's really good because then I can let the students wear it, and I don't have to just be the only one to wear it.
Yeah.
We project that HoloLens onto a smartboard, so 5 of them or 3 of them can be working together to see the same thing, and they all kind of experience that
And that's
together.
the same with the Oculus as well? You project that? Got it.
Yeah. So, but again, to get it incorporated, that is the biggest thing because the nursing instructors are saying, specifically nursing instructors, but all of them, we are already overworked.
Yeah.
We're already compressed with time. We have to remove material so that we can fit everything in. And now you're expecting me or asking me to fit this other thing in. Where do I do that and how do I incorporate that? So as the simulation specialist, I'm trying to do training on here's how you do an Oculus because that's the first step.
So
right?
now you have to teach the teachers.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
So walk me through that process. How are you teaching the teachers, the staff?
Yeah, so the college approved to do professional development hours to award those because every instructor has to have professional development hours. So they will come in, it just happens to be next week, they'll come in for a couple hours and actually I can walk them through, this is what an Oculus is and this is how you navigate it, this is how you use it. Because if they're not comfortable with that, they're not going to give it to their students to do. And then we're actually going to have some time where they can navigate the virtual reality program. And see how can I incorporate this? How will it fit into my program? As a paramedic instructor, that works pretty well because when I'm teaching, I can be like, hey guys, guess what we're doing today?
Guess what we're going to do today? This is my lecture.
That's exactly right. Yeah. But that is the biggest challenge is overcoming that learning deficit and then showing them how it will actually help them incorporate into their lessons.
Your job is hard.
I mean, when you look at it, paramedic, saving lives all the time, teaching, I don't know. It's a different scale.
That's a good point.
So, but yeah, it's all perspective.
Okay, so you walked me through how to program a sim mannequin. How do you program your VR simulations?
So the only one that I have is virtual reality patients. But it's the same kind of idea. You just have to walk step by step. And virtual reality patients has been really good to kind of help if I have questions. And of course, there's education on the front end. Whenever something didn't work, I could call them and just say, hey, it's not working. I want to put them on a nebulizer. Why is it not working? And then they tell me you have to take the nasal cannula off first and program it that way.
So one of the things we talk about is like digital investment. And it's this idea that once you spend those hours constructing something digitally, that it's reusable. And you can copy and paste that work out and put it into another one. So are you experiencing any advantages to having a digital investment, to the time you're spending.
Yeah, absolutely, because you can copy and paste. You can't really do that with the other mannequins. At least I haven't found it gets them kind of confused. But absolutely, that does. And once it's there, like you said, it's there, and you can copy paste. You can tweak it just a little bit. For example, when I'm first starting for virtual reality patients, I don't want them to fail a lot.
Yeah.
So I will remove those required tabs.
Critical actions.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Stuff. Yeah.
So that they feel like they're successful. And then as they progress, okay, now this time, if you don't do this,
it's going to count.
It's going to count. If you don't ask them for allergies before you give them medications, you're going to fail this time. And then progress it like that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm hearing baby steps, but baby steps forward. Like it's kind of
100%.
like do you feel like you have to do something? Like you're kind of up against the wall because there's a technological wave, or because there's a shortage, or because there's a need where you're being forced to innovate? Like what drove you in the direction of VR, AR, HoloLenses? What drove you in this direction?
I wouldn't say that I'm forced. I think that's just a good progression. And you have to start now because it's going to take a while. We've almost had it for a year. And it's going to take a while for the instructors, especially the older ones who aren't comfortable, to incorporate that. So if we don't start now, we're going to be way behind in 5 years. So
I agree with you. It's like a wave.
It is.
And I see you as someone who's not going to be caught flat-footed.
Yeah.
Well,
and I'm making an investment now. In 5 years, that investment that I made today will pay off.
What do you think? What's the vision of payoff? Can you paint that picture for me? Let's fast forward 5 years or 8 years down the road. What do you see as like the ideal vision of just payoff?
Well, I think the students coming out will be more confident. And because they are more confident that they're doing the correct treatments, the patients get better care. So obviously that's kind of the end goal, is that all of these patients, whether it's respiratory patients, dental patients, EMS patients, it doesn't matter, that those patients get good care because we have trained them well. And the students will be more confident, which means that they will stay in the program because they're confident that they're learning that they can do it. So we put out more students.
Retention.
Yeah. Yes, that's exactly.
And quality care.
Yes.
And that is patient safety.
Yeah.
I see the circle.
I know. How about that?
How about that?
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for sitting to chat with me.
Yeah, you're welcome.
We always ask a couple of questions at the end, but we'll just do like one more question, which is if you had any advice for someone who might be in your seat and they see the same thing that you're seeing coming, the same wave, what advice would you give them?
Yeah. Just be patient and compassionate, right? It's not that these people who are kind of bucking the system and not wanting to progress, they're not working against you. There's just a fear of the kind of the unknown, and a fear of change, and what's that going to look like, and how am I going to be able to do all this? And so if you can kind of be patient and compassionate and almost hold their hand and walk them through it, I think that's how we will make those progressions and those steps toward better retention, better care.
Now, are you talking about staff right now from a director's perspective, or were you talking about students?
I'm talking about the instructors, the facilities.
Yes. Okay,
right,
got
yeah.
it. So teaching the teachers.
Yeah, right, because students are on board with whatever. They don't know. They come in going, I'm going to learn whatever it is you teach me in whatever way it is that you teach me. So it's the faculty that we really have to get on board to say, hey, this is how the students can learn the best. Let's try and incorporate this in what you're doing.
All right, well, you just heard it firsthand, director to director. Guys, hold the hands.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Hold their hands.
Yep.
Help them learn, help them grow, because there's a pot of gold at the end of the tunnel there, right?
Yeah,
End of the
exactly
rainbow.
right. Yeah.
Joyce, thank you so much for being on the Immersive Medical Podcast. Do you want to tell people like where you are and where they can find you if they want to learn from you and learn about your best practices?
Sure, yeah. I'm at Greenville Technical College. My email is joice.lynn@gvltec.edu.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome.
There you go. So
She's going to get a whole bunch of emails now. You put that out there. No, I'm
that's
just
all
teasing.
right.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And all right. We'll see you on the next one, guys.
Sounds good.
Bye.
Bye.
All right, before we go any further, I want to give a shout out to our friends at VR Patients. VR Patients is bringing the future of medical education to you with the world's first virtual reality simulation authoring tool. These guys have turned medical training into a fully immersive experience. Just imagine, it's like strapping on your VR headset and diving into the exact scenario you need for your students. It's as if you're shaping their educational journeys in real time. Pretty cool, huh? And let me tell you, their grading rubric is as objective as it gets, which means no guesswork, no bias, just accurate, constructive feedback. Head on over to vrpatients.com, that's vrpatients.com, and get the lowdown on this game-changing platform.
So we're here back at SimGHOSTS again for the Immersive Medical Podcast, and we have got David Shablock. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself? Thanks for stopping by.
So yeah, my name's David Shablock. I've been in simulation 12 years next week, so it's been a little while. Done everything from emergency medicine, nursing, EMS, special operations simulations, things like that, and I just absolutely love what I do.
So why are you here at SimGHOSTS? Tell me, what's the draw to come to the SimGHOSTS conference?
Well, SimGHOSTS was my actual first conference ever. It was my first simulation conference ever, and I went to Memphis, and I just fell in love ever since. I love this organization. I love supporting them, and I've taught at every single conference I've been to for them ever since. So I will always be here, and I will always support them.
Well, that's awesome. I get the feeling from this community. It's way more engaged because it just feels like, I'm sure that people are going to be upset when I say this, but it feels like the conference of doers, like the place. These are the people on the front line, doing the work, getting the job done. Can you define SimGHOSTS? I actually realized I don't think we've ever defined the acronym. Do you know what it is?
Oh, I don't know as far as what the acronym at all. Well,
it's the gathering.
Yes, the gathering of health.
Yep. The gathering of healthcare simulation.
The gathering of simulation technology specialists.
There it is, SimGHOSTS.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
That's their official tagline.
So, what's your experience been like here so far?
Oh, it's awesome. It's very collaborative. The biggest thing I will say about this event versus the previous ones I've been to here is the amount of new people here. In the opening plenary, everybody raised their hands as far as they were new, and at least in the main room, it was probably 80% of the people were all new. They've never been to a conference. They've never been in sim. And I love when we get people like that, because some of those people are just sent here. Some of those people are just have a job. It's just a stepping stone. And it's things like this. When I was at Parkview at the SimGHOSTS just 21, I think it was, we had a guy come up, and he said that. He said, I was only here because my employer made me go. He says, this was just a stepping stone. He says, I didn't think much of it. I came from IT. He says, oh my God, I want a 3D printer, and I want to do this, and I want to learn more, and I want to make my program
These are his
better.
buddies.
And he says, and I'm here forever.
Yes.
And he just had passion. It just lit an unbelievable fire in him, and he is just killing it.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about you. What do you do for healthcare?
So I am a paramedic, trained as a paramedic, but I got my card kind of late. I've done transport. I haven't hung up helicopters or anything exciting, so I've been a transport medic. Haven't ran in a few years just because I do a lot in the sim industry, and I'm so busy I can't. And that makes me sad. I miss patient care. I'm avid about patient care, and I love it. I mean, my first itch when the pandemic started was, I was like, I just need to get in the back of a truck. I need to help people. So, but we still do it. We just do it a different way. And that's hard to wrap our brains around, because I've been in sim long enough that, we've had students come back and they go, I just had a horrible scenario on play, in my ER, in the back of my ambulance, in real life. He's like, and I felt more prepared because
they did your simulations?
Correct.
So help me understand. Do you have a company? Do you travel and do sims? What do you do because you're not on the box?
All right. So I work for Orbis Education, and we are based out of Carmel, Indiana. And we are an OPM, and it's fancy words for we facilitate making accelerated BSN programs. So we have probably about 25 sim centers across the United States, and we we partner with schools where they bring us the curriculum, they bring us the instructors, and we do a lot of the other stuff. So I help set up sim centers, I help provide education support to SOSs, entire simulation operations specialists like we are, or entire programs and things like that. So primarily nursing right now.
Wow. what's your next simulation center you're going to go and help out?
I'm going down to Phoenix.
That's my area. It's hot, by the way. Just a heads
That's
up.
what I hear. It's hot, but it's supposed to be a dry heat.
No, don't listen
Yeah,
to that.
yeah, it's just
People's
hot.
skin will just slough off. It's that hot.
That's the thing. I went to Houston probably about a month or two ago, and you'd be inside working, and it's air conditioned, nice, and all that. You walk out and you go, "Oh, there's that Texas for you, right in the face."
Yeah, 120 something else, whether it's dry or not, man.
Yeah,
it's something else.
that hurts.
So you're going down to Phoenix to
Correct.
help them.
Set up a site. So what we do is in our company is we just build them from scratch, and so we.
When you mean build, you're not building the construction of the building.
Correct.
Like your
we have
architecture.
We have architects. We have construction people, and we build it out. We have amazing and talented people that work for us that do literally
Whoa.
everything. So we plan. We work with the different schools and things like that, and we build it out, and we install it all. We set it all up. We train people, and we go.
I wish people could feel the energy that I'm getting from you right now, because it sounds like you enjoy your work.
I'm a big nerd for this. I mean, we have my own projects where I'm a big geek for this. And I always tell people that aren't that familiar with sim, I'm like, yeah, I'm a nerd for this, so much so I have 2 mannequins in my garage. And they look at me like, yeah, right. I'm like, no, really. I have 2 in my garage. And they just look at me very strangely.
Oh, my goodness. Well, so why is it weird to have mannequins in your garage? Other than it looks weird.
They're expensive.
They're expensive. Exactly. People don't understand. You could easily spend 120 grand on one mannequin.
Yeah, I bought 5 out of an auction that
Well
were
done.
former, came out of Bragg, so they're Ranger mannequins, so they were beat the hell up.
Beat up.
And that's actually what started one of my other projects is, we're just trying to, build that and do rebuild the mannequins, show people how to work on things, because some people are so scared. They get these things
Yeah.
and they're just like, I don't want to touch them. And then they get put in a corner and they get put in a box and they don't touch them at all. I always tell my learners, I'm like, do whatever you got to do that would be what you would do in your patient care scenario. I'll fix it. Whatever you're going to do, you break it, I'll fix it.
So let me ask you a question.
Yeah,
I've
go.
heard this all the time,
Okay.
that people don't use the mannequin for what it's intended to.
Yeah.
They're just doing IVs and CPR on them,
Yeah.
or
Or not CPR because they don't want to break the chest. Oh, that'll break things.
so. Can you speak to a little bit about that? You've got nursing institutions or healthcare institutions, and they're spending big money on big equipment, and then it becomes the biggest paperweight of all time, or an underutilized device that actually might be extremely powerful. So, is that true? Is that actually happening?
Maybe it's just my hope, but I hope it's happening less. It is traditional, something that has happened, and I look at that as buying, this big hot rod that you wanted. It is, whatever car that was.
Yeah.
It was so expensive. You put so much money into it that you wipe it down with a diaper and you treat it like gold, but you don't want to use it. Why would you do that? Why would you have a hot rod that you can't take out to go to the hot dog stand or something like that? And so I think personally it comes back to familiarity and training. And that's the thing is you got to have a staff that is comfortable, trained
Yeah.
well, and works as a good team to know, I always say that if I die with clean mannequins, I've failed. I want to die with dirty, beat up, ratty mannequins because that means people learned real things and that real patient care will be better from here on out.
That's the end game, right? So we're talking about simulation right now, but what we're really talking about is supporting the framework of healthcare.
Damn straight.
Right? Because people are treating real people, and there was a keynote here at SimGHOSTS that was talking about the Apollo missions.
Correct.
And he said, we want to fail down here so we don't fail up there in space, right? That's the same thing. You want to fail in the sim at these nursing colleges, these students, or these hospitals in remediation training or continuing education training. This is the place to fail often and fail fast.
And I always tell my students, they come in, they're so nervous. They're like, I don't want to make mistakes. I said, if you didn't make mistakes, I wouldn't have a job. I said, I've been doing this over 10 years. I love my job. I said, do it. Make your mistakes here because the doc I learned off of, 30-year ER doc, 30-year Air Force, he was like, I came from a generation of physicians that made all their mistakes on real people, which is why he hated it. He was like, so that's why I'm so passionate about what we do. It's not a game. It's not fun in game. It is as real or as close to reality as we can make it. We push you just past the envelope of comfort so that you can do most things right. You're going to make mistakes, but you make your mistakes here.
You're speaking to something, and we're touching on staffing shortage. We're touching on overworked, underutilized, understaffed, whether that's understaffed at a hospital or understaffed in simulation. There's high turnover. People are moving around, and there's burnout amongst nurses that are actually getting the job. What are you thinking?
And undertrained.
And undertrained.
Because, we just went through a pandemic where everybody was nervous about, can we even do sim? Can we not? Or how do we do it? And things like that. And another complaint I'm hearing is they're getting nurses and they're putting the hospitals, the more cutting edge hospitals, are putting them through different training and things like that. And they're like, well, I've never had sim, or, the sim experience I had was it was so terrifying. I never want to do it again.
Yeah. So you're here at the conference, and you stopped by the VR Patients booth, and I just really want to toss the ball to you and just ask you what your experience was, because you've never been under the hood of VR Patients before. And when I say under the hood, you put the goggles on, but then you also logged on to the computer to see the instructor, the faculty side of it. So can you just tell the audience a little bit about your experience with this type of virtual reality platform?
Correct. So we met at IMSH, and it was a little bit busy, but I promised you that I would definitely stop by here, and I've been excited to. We've talked several times.
Yeah.
We've worked together. It's been a pleasure, and so I really wanted to see your, the company you're affiliated with, things like that, and it was a joy. I am a skeptic on just about anything because I want to know how are we going to apply it to the learning objectives. And some things that we see that come out that are new and flashy can be a little bit of a marketing piece, and they can be great to get new students, but how is it really going to help? And so I put your headset on and went through a case. It was a difficulty breathing case, and I was able to do everything from assess the patient, do what I needed, but I really want to talk to the empathy side of it because, I'm trying to be objective and go through the right thing. But my medic brain is sitting here going, there is a guy having a difficulty breathing who is sweating, who is tripoding, who is rocking back and forth, and I want to give him a damn neb right now. And so that's not always easy to get on virtual reality. So you're getting the empathetic buy-in. So not only was it easy to go through all the things, I'm getting the buy-in. I'm like, I need to treat this guy, and I need to treat him right now.
Yeah.
So it was really good. I liked it. It was a positive experience that I want to do more, and I want to go through more. Then we sat with the authoring program because I write sims, day in, day out, and I need to know how hard it is to code a sim. That's scary. It's terrifying. God, what coding, crazy architectural. I'm a visual guy. I'm a builder. I'm a hands-on guy. I do Photoshop. I do 3D printing and all that. But goddamn, it's scary as hell to think of what coding I'm gonna have to do. But it's not like that without authoring program. It's very stepwise, flowchart. If this, then that.
Like an algorithm.
It is, and you start with your learning objectives that's all that matters is the learning objectives. Then you build it from there off the learning objectives.
Yeah.
It flows down well, and I was impressed. It's
really,
very nice.
It keeps you out of a rabbit hole when you start with your learning objectives, right? Because if you remember that we're here today for a single learning objective, and that is to get this patient to definitive care or relieve their respiratory distress. Then later you find yourself in the authoring tool building it. Mm-hmm. And the case logic, that's what it's called. It's like node-based logic. And so for people who haven't seen it before, you have like a box on the left, and it might say, if this happens, and there's some drop downs and some options. So it might say, if you give this med, then, and then you put another box down, then this happens.
Yeah, it's flowcharts.
Yeah, and you draw a line to it, and that connecting line is a node, and it codes it for you. So that's the coding, right? That's the extent of the coding.
But that's not what we see.
Right.
We just see, this is the patient presentation I want to give. This is the medication. This is not only the gauge of IV, where I want it, how fast it's flowing. But again, it's not I have to sit there and code it. It's just like a very intuitive box that says, these are your choices. Pick this one, go from there. And it's very easy.
Yeah. Hey, Connor, have you ever wished that you could test your medical skills in a realistic but low-stakes environment?
No, I haven't.
You're not a medical person, but that's okay because it's not a fantasy. It's called VR Patients.
That's right, Devin. VR Patients is a groundbreaking platform that lets you create your own virtual reality simulations. It's like a choose-your-own-adventure book, but for medical scenarios.
And it's not just one kind of scenario. Any simulation you can imagine. You want to create a complex critical care trauma or a simple basic life support patient? You can do it all with VR Patients. And best of all, it's highly scalable, catering to 10 students or 10,000. Connor, did you know that they recently deployed to the entire state of Maine?
I saw an article about that. You really have to check it out for yourself at vrpatients.com. That's vrpatients.com for more information.
And if you're like Connor and you don't know medicine, but you got a VR headset at home, you can try it right now for free on the MetaQuest store or Steam. So, we talk a lot about digital investment when I talk to people about, why VR, especially because of the skeptics, not just skeptics, but there's a practicality issue. If I've said this quite frequently, if I am having a heart attack at home and I call 911 somehow because I have the gumption to call 911, and now the medics arrive or whatever, and I have to have CPR. I'm in the emergency department. I need CPR. And then this healthcare provider comes up to do CPR on me, and they've only ever done CPR in virtual reality. I don't want them to do CPR on me.
Yeah.
I want the guy who breaks ribs, right?
Well, hopefully.
Hopefully, because at the end of the day, the practicality of doing something digitally, it needs to increase my competency.
Mm-hmm.
And so what do you think about doing physical skills in VR versus making clinical decisions in VR or a digital environment?
Physical skills are important. I have not seen anybody really tie it in yet. So as far as we need that touch, it is just another modality. I mean, and it is a very appropriate modality. There's science on it and things like that. But I have not seen, I don't have the experience to speak on that.
I'm not a fan of it.
Okay.
I'm not a fan of the, well, just personally, I mean, okay, so let's just first start with the technology, okay?
Correct.
You have controllers, and you click, it's like pulling a trigger, right? There's nothing in healthcare that I can think of that's like that.
Correct.
Maybe squeezing a bag.
Yeah. But you're still not going to get. I can't get the trigger on the actual thing to do the appropriate. It's not going to give me the proper tactile feedback to link to muscle memory.
Yes, and so if I'm spending too much time, it's okay to spend some time, but if I'm spending too much time in VR in an immersive environment pulling triggers, I'm wasting time, and I want to get to my decision making. And tell me, I see you're about to say something.
Because my brain just clicked on something. So we talk about virtual reality. We talk about that it is a different modality. Stop trying to parallel it to, it is an augmentation, I believe, or a bridge step to a high fidelity patient with a mannequin, all that. I don't think mannequins are ever going to go away.
Yeah.
I don't think they ever should. But we're going to go somewhere where you're going to look at me funny, because I had a conversation with one of the other vendors in here about their IV arms. And I get very frustrated when people say, what is the best IV arm out there? And I give my suggestions of 2 different brands. And I always am met with, but that doesn't feel like real. And I say, but here's the thing. In an IV placement, in a task training physical thing, I'm not teaching how it feels, because nothing is more real than real. I'm teaching you the thought process, the what you set up, the experience, the equipment, and things like that. I said, so stop getting wrapped up in that. That's the important thing. So now I am in my brain paralleling that to virtual virtual simulations, because, again, there is a place for the physical, there's a place for the muscle memory, but I think there's a larger need for the thought processes and how we get about it, and the empathic connection to the patients that can be done in virtual reality, and it can be done, I would say, cheaper, even though a lot of people will look at the price like, oh, it's so expensive. If you look at the aggregated price, it's cheaper. I will argue with you.
You know how I learned to get good at IVs?
How?
I taped an oxygen tube down to a table, and then I got that soft sticky tape for wounds that kind of feels like skin. I just laid it over it, and I stabbed that tube probably 1,000 times.
Because you got your muscle memory and you're thinking down.
It had nothing to do with resistance, and everything to do with practicing the timing and the angle and everything. And I burnt through so many needles that day.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, the next day, I wasn't missing. I wasn't missing.
And it's all about the thinking, because when I learned IV placement, I didn't get it as quickly as my peers, because they didn't want to have too many IVs. They didn't want us to stick. They didn't want us to put too many holes in the arm. And there was a couple of the thinking processes that I didn't get until I actually was sticking a few people incorrectly and had to learn it the hard way.
Yeah.
So I wish I had that experience, and it was a arguably low fidelity experience that got you to the high fidelity skill.
I got to touch on one more thing, because we only did controllers, and hand tracking is right around the corner, and it's present in some areas. And I also am not a fan
Yeah.
for the purposes of learning skills, physical
Correct.
skills. I love hand tracking. I think it's
yeah.
cool. Selecting, making sure that I'm navigating, but I want to make decisions.
Correct.
And if I have to reach out and touch air, and that's supposed to teach me to touch a patient or
Correct.
touch an object, it's not there.
No. And I would argue that the controllers will get you to the learning so that when you have to place your hands on something, you can learn your muscle memory other ways, but it's hard to set up a complete scenario that you can place anywhere from a busy
Right.
room to a one bed clinic to deploy. That's the harder thing to do. I can make a skill station anywhere. You made one in your house with a piece of tubing.
I did. I was actually in the utility closet in the emergency department.
I can see it in
I
my
just
head.
like,
Yeah,
rolled over a code cart and laid it right on top of it. All right, so I just got one more question about this technology, this simulation, and then we'll let you plug all of your stuff and talk about where people can find you. So I want to circle back
Okay.
to the authoring tool for a virtual
Okay.
simulation or an immersive tool, okay, a digital investment. The thought that what you build, you own, that when you have an employer or a hospital or an institution ask you for a specific type of patient simulation because they had a sentinel event, so they need to train on it, they need to remediate on that, or they had a high acuity, low occurrence patient. What feelings do you have? Like, how do you feel about having control over an authoring tool?
It allows me to, I don't have to make my learning objectives fit yours that you made me. You're not forcing your education on me. I can custom make my curriculum to fit the needs. Like you said, we had a sentinel event. We had a patient safety event. Now I can make something that's off there. I don't have to phone you up, pay you a bunch of money, and then say, okay, in 6 months, can you have that done?
Yeah.
No, I can have a sentinel event. I can build something overnight. Go, oh my God, we had this horrible experience. I'm going to build something that's close to it, but make sure I'm meeting the learning objectives I can and deploy it quickly.
And you know what I love about that? It lives on.
Yep.
So for you, with Orbis, you built something for an educational institution. It would stay there, right? And they can continue to learn from your wisdom.
Or evolve it as the medicine changes.
Yes. I also love the idea that if another COVID hit, so, COVID hits Washington, and all those hospitals up there are the first ones to receive that public health crisis, and then they build something and deploy it nationally to prepare the rest of the nation. We would have been, I like to think, in a much different position, which would have been, we might have saved some lives there, and I get excited.
I would hope so.
I think that's the main reason why I work with VR patients so much. It's, I don't know, when we talk about making a difference, sometimes I feel like I'm a part of the tool that's really the touchdown, not the tool that's the flashy thing today.
Well, also we talk about butterfly wings. You're doing this case here and trying to deploy it nationally, and when those ripples hit out, how many, we can be in the back of the truck, we can be saving one patient, and we can go home happy and proud. But if we can train thousands of providers saving tens of thousands of patients, it's not as much of a direct pat on the back, but we know it happens.
Yes.
When
That's how healthcare changes.
Yes, and that's when we have students come back going, okay, I still had to change my shorts, but I knew what to do. I knew what needed to be done, and the patient survived. Rather than the other side of it going, oh my God, I just, it survived, but now I'm mentally scarred for life because of the thing that almost happened.
Yeah, we're seeing a lot of data about students who would prefer, I know they can't always do this, but they would prefer to do their labs in the privacy of their home or in a privacy of by themselves in a room. And it has to do with nerves and failing in front of people. And I think that those types of studies doing those statistics are really showcasing that initially it's actually really valuable to let them fail by themselves. Because they got to come into the sim lab. They got to do it with the class. They got to be put on the spot because you're going to get put on the spot with a patient.
There's no homework in the ER. There's no work from home. Sorry, there's no work from home in the ER, unfortunately.
Yeah, so I like the idea of a student coming in for sim day or for their practical simulations, having done 20 or 30 patients in the privacy of their home, and the questions that they might ask, I'd like to think will be way more deep, way more involved in the patient care versus questions about the technology or questions about the mannequin or whatever, right? And the technology fades into the background because it's just second nature. Well, David, thank you so much for sitting with me impromptu here at SimGHOSTS.
I'm glad we actually got the time, because I know we've talked about it several
Yeah.
times, and we didn't. That's why I said this was one of my goals going to this conference, was to come here and hang out with you a little bit.
Well, the Immersive Med audience is thankful, so thank you. And please tell people where they can find you and what you're doing.
Okay, so I have a podcast in the simulation operations industry. It's called the SimGeeks Podcast. I also do some videos, usually on instruction and how to fix and build and do things. It's under my company, which is Simulation Tech. That's Simulation TEK. The YouTube channel is Simulation Tech, but the series is called This Old Mannequin. So,
Well, now you guys know where to find David Sheblock. And please go to SimGeeks, go to Simulation Tech, and check them out. And you gotta check out This Old Mannequin. Thank you for listening, and thank you for talking.
thank you for your time.
All right, before we go any further, I want to give a shout out to our friends at VR Patients. VR Patients is bringing the future of scalable clinical education to you with the world's first virtual reality simulation authoring tool. What the heck is that? It basically means educators can author patient scenarios and medical illnesses in VR, no coding required. These guys have turned medical training into a fully immersive experience. Whether you have 10 students or 10,000, VR Patients allows you to tailor the experience to your exact needs. Head on over to vrpatients.com, that's vrpatients.com, and get the lowdown on this game-changing platform. And if you have a VR headset at home, you can try it right now for free on the MetaQuest or Steam store.
If I get it pregnant, it's not my fault.
Well, that's recording.
Oh. Sorry.
Hey, everyone. This is Devin Marble again, back at SimGHOSTS. We're recording live. This is our last day in the exhibition hall at SimGHOSTS, and we have an excellent guest who decided to sit down and join us. Her name is Lori DiCino. Did I get it right?
Yes.
All right. Welcome to the Immersive Medical Pod. Please tell the audience about who is Lori.
Oh, well, that's a loaded question. But yes, who am I? I work in in a hospital system simulation. And
You work for HCA, right?
Yes, I do. I actually have about 5 years history with nursing college. So I have kind of like the student end of interaction, and I'm also getting my feet wet with a hospital system that has new grads for simulation, as well as, seasoned vets, people who want to transfer. We have a great transfer program. So, hey, they're savvy on the floor of an emergency room, but they want to transfer to an L&D program, and we'll get you there. And I'm that person that either does it with VR, or I'm the person with the baby belly with my legs up in the air and helping deliver a baby.
So you're a standardized patient?
I have been a standardized patient, yes.
I'm going to have to ask you. I'm going to ask you about that in a minute. So it says on your card, I'm looking at your card right here, that's how I got your name right, is Simulation Operations Specialist, which is exactly the main guest, the main person who comes to SimGHOSTS, right?
Right.
These are your people.
Yes.
So tell me what you do specifically as a Simulation Operations Specialist. I heard standardized patient, and then I heard VR. So what are you doing in VR for HCA?
So one thing that we've done recently that I really like is we go into the hospitals, because it's really hard to actually get nurses outside of their schedule to actually go in and try some supplemental educational tools. And the one thing that I like about it, an experience that I had recently, was we took some VR headsets to Rose, and
What's Rose?
Rose Medical is they are the baby central.
So it's a hospital?
Yes.
Okay, got it.
For HCA, and there was we're like, okay, so this is a generational tool. So the people who are older, who are just like, they're not really interested in VR because it's not their generation. They have younger nurses there who are saying, hey, it's easy. Try this. Just
They're not
try
interested
it.
yet.
Yes.
Right? I understand.
They
I
actually
understand.
they actually kind of help with the buy-in of it. And once they're there, it's like, okay, well, so you're after your shift. It's on your break. You're here. Let me borrow you for 15 minutes. And then it's like, okay, we're going to do a shoulder stocia. and then it's actually good review for them. Okay, we haven't had one come through for a while, so you know what? Hey, it doesn't hurt. A story is I had a nurse that came to the event, and she came up to me, kind of grabbed me by the arm, and she goes, so I'm a little bit nervous because this is my second day on the labor and delivery floor, and I don't know if I'm going to know how to do the VR. I like the content that's within it. I said, that's okay.
That's what it's for.
Yeah, do it and try it. I mean, it's like it's a if you didn't get the desired outcome that you wanted, that's okay, because go back and do it. Like, it's practice. And then, as Irene would have it, later as during the course of the time that we were there, they had a patient who was 9 centimeters dilated and suspect for shoulder dystocia.
No.
And they were like, all right, well, this is actually really good. And then there was nurses that wanted to get into the VR just to refresh.
Wow. How impactful is that?
Luckily that patient did not happen, but it was good to have that supplemental, hey, this is here, you're here, just jump in, 20 minutes.
And what a great way to, like, the aha moment to go off for the person who sees a tool in front of them and goes, wait, how do I use this? Am I going to be good at this? I don't know. Then the next day, did you say the next day?
Oh, yeah.
Or was it a few hours later?
Oh, yeah, no, it was during.
Oh, so right there.
Like, we were there for
that
3
patient
hours.
appears?
And they said, hey, we have a patient who's almost 9 centimeters dilated.
That's a perfect way to explain why simulating in an immersive digital environment is so helpful. This idea that you can fail often and fail fast in a safe environment is so important in healthcare. I love that. Okay, so let's talk a little about standardized patient.
That is one of my favorite sims, just because
I think you need to explain to people what a standardized patient is.
So a standardized patient is actually you are the patient in the room having the interaction with the participant. Be it like a nursing student, be it...
You're pretending to be the patient.
I am pretending to be the patient. I'm wearing the moulage. I played a patient who was borderline personality. I played a patient who was going through cocaine withdrawal.
Oh my gosh.
I've done also anxiety disorder, and also just doing maneuvers as the patient in the bed with my legs up in the air for L&D.
Oh my goodness. Were you wearing like a big fake belly?
I was wearing a big fake belly,
and did like
black
a little
shorts.
baby mannequin come out?
Yeah. It was actually a little baby mannequin that you fill with hot water so that it actually kind of has the gooiness. I mean, you guys can't see it, but I'm like doing the gooiness with my hands, but it's like has the fluidity of a baby, like that you have to support the head. And, you know, and I mean, my legs are up in the air. They say, okay, we're going to practice breach maneuver. Come to the edge of the bed. And like they literally have to hold me up in the air so that I don't fall off the bed.
So I've been involved in 4 deliveries. 2 of them were my own kids. And I caught my second child.
Wow.
And I was super prepared for that because I knew that, this is going to be slippery. Was this little rubber baby easy to catch?
Oh, yes. The baby is easy to catch. We practice regular.
Darn.
Yeah. Unfortunately, yes. But I mean, the nice thing is you're able to cath me, and I have air quotes me. You're able to cath the patient. You're able to
I see. Because
simulate.
you're wearing gear.
Yes.
Got it.
I'm wearing gear, and also I can simulate a boggy uterus. So they can practice their fundal massage.
Wow.
And also.
Do you get like a script? Like, do you know what to say?
Sometimes they want you to have a script, and sometimes they just want you to do your thing.
Like they give you an outline, or they just go for it. Good luck.
I'm like, it's like a do it you. I mean, I've been what I call Oz, where I am operating the mannequin from behind the wall, and am the voice of the patient. So I just kind of channeled the babies that I've had, the sim babies that I've had with a mannequin.
That's wild.
And same thing, but I'm just like in the room.
That's so cool. You're the first standardized patient we've interviewed on the Immersive Medical Pod. So you're
Oh,
probably
wow.
speaking to a whole audience who's like, I've totally done that.
It is. I'll say it is really fun. Just because then it's like with like the cocaine withdrawal, it's like you actually get to like get mad and get in their face and get upset. I mean, you can't touch them, but I mean, like throwing a tissue box across the wall, or throwing grabbing a pillow, throwing it across the wall, trying to break into a medication like a Pyxis.
Sure.
And just seeing their reactions, and okay, so how did it's the one thing that I like about simulating a patient experience with a real person is what is inside you comes out organically. It is an environment where that person is in the room and they're actually able to see oh wow, so you actually reached, there was somebody who reached for my hands, and and then they had to like stop themselves. And it's also like, what about your safety as a nurse? What about your safety of like, you just put yourself in the corner of the room. I'm mentally unstable. And you left your pen on the table. Wow. I could easily grab the pen and like try to come and stab you, and you have no way out.
Oh my goodness. I'd like to switch gears for a minute from this nightmare of being stabbed by the pen. No, I'm just teasing. So what we're describing right now is a one-to-one simulation relationship with the nurse, right? So, or maybe 1 to 2, but it's in person, live happening. And something we talk about often is the nursing shortage crisis, or even CNA, bedside frontline worker crisis. And there's going to be quite a large shortage. I state the same numbers every time. 15 million shortage over the next 7 years. We need to produce 2 million more healthcare professionals every year for the next 7 years just to meet the need. How, as someone who is a standardized patient, but also dabbling in the new immersive technology world, how do you see, from your perspective, how do you see solutions for solving the staffing shortage? Like, how do we scale up simulation training, if not all training, but new tools?
I think that it makes it mobile. It makes it, and also I like the fact that it accesses different learning preferences, different learning styles, and also opens you up to it. And addressing the shortage, I think that it's really important to try and get everything that you can, like VR, SP, just because I know this is a weird way to say it, but it's exposure for them. It's exposure therapy for them, because then they get to have a safe place to make the mistakes. And then it's like, okay, so I went there emotionally, mentally, physically, and now I know the next time that I go there, I am more prepared. And it's really that technology, that teaching tool is going to be empowering. And it's something that if we can actually reach them on multiple platforms, it makes them feel more empowered, like that nurse at Rose who said, I don't feel comfortable. I'm not L&D savvy yet. It's my second day on the floor. She was like, oh wow, I feel better. I'm not a nurse, and I'm like, I feel like I can deliver a shoulder dystocia baby because of just doing VR.
Well, at least mentally, you go, I would do step A, then step B, then step C. Got it.
It's a way for them to feel safe, because we put a lot on their shoulders, and this is a way for them to feel more empowered to carry that burden. So,
you talked a little bit about VR. For the audience who maybe hasn't done it, has heard the acronym, has been told that they need to start getting into it, what do you like and dislike about that technology?
So it is limiting for the people who do get motion sickness and whatnot, and there are things that we can do to mitigate that. But the thing is like it's also like makes you say, okay, how do we adapt this? Put somebody else in a VR, helmet, and then have them, like here, it forces you to get creative with the technology that's out there, because they can get in the helmet, and then they can direct them and not have to suffer the motion sickness of it. So it forces you to kind of like the Marines, adapt, improvise, and overcome.
What about you just dropped the Marines on us? That was great. I did. What about logistics? It's sometimes a logistical nightmare with this new technology and VR headsets. So any examples or tips or advice you give to people that you've experienced trying to put people through VR?
Oh, yeah. The nice thing is VR's mobile. We can come to you. And also, if it's used as supplemental, in place of some of the monotonous continuing education online modules that you have to do, that you're just clicking through to get through it. It's a funner way, more immersive, more you're in the cockpit flying the plane, interactive way to get them engaged in what they're doing. And also, if we can build a platform to go to them, then it's just hey, I just do this on a break, and I'm here. It's not costing me any time, money, and it's also a way for me to just refresh in emergent areas that I need to refresh in. That's huge.
That's a lot of stuff you just named. That's all great. Okay, so just a couple more questions. Thank you for your time. So you're here at SimGHOSTS, and I saw that you came by the VR Patients booth, which is kind of where we're sitting right now. It's kind of behind us, and there's people cycling through VR.
Yes.
So was that your first experience with VR Patients?
No.
Oh. Can you tell me about your experience? Like, what was it like, and what did you experience?
It was nice because it was a variety of different experiences. I mean, I have like the platforms that I've done is pediatric is PALS, pediatric advanced life support, ACLS.
In a different platform,
a stroke,
right?
yeah, like it's like the multiple emergent platforms that are available. Various ones within labor and delivery, shoulder dystocia, preeclampsia, sepsis. You know, how do you handle it differently if a mom codes?
Sure.
You know, all those things, and it's been nice. It's been nice with the different. I mean, with the different encounters that you have, and I like you're in the cockpit, you're flying the plane, and you're the one. It's like, and the thing is like it's a safe place for you to actually. You know, that sounds weird, but crash and burn, because we'd much rather you kill a simulated patient than a real one.
Did you try the authoring tool at all?
The authoring tool over here?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
You didn't get to try the authoring tool yet?
Not that I don't think so.
I think we're going to have to get you to try that, so that way you can see what it's like to make changes.
Okay.
So you only went in and clicked around and got to stand in front of a patient and
see what it
was like.
Yes. It was nice because I put in like a dosage that I knew was wrong, and to see what would happen, and then to see that immediate, like, okay, so pause, like here's what you would need to do.
Got
and
it.
so that immediate like course correction of it.
Got it. Well, Lori, thank you so much for sitting down with us. If you have time, we'll get you into the authoring tool. But for now, would you like to tell the people where they can find you if they want to ask you questions or learn about you or follow you on a social network? Feel free.
Oh, well, I actually am a part of a healthcare simulationist Facebook group.
Oh, great.
And I'm on there. You can find me, Lori DiCino, and I'm on Facebook as well.
Great.
Healthcare Simulationist is a wonderful platform it's very resourcul.
Great.
So
check out the Healthcare Simulation Facebook group. That sounds good.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for stopping by.
Yes.
Hey, Connor, are you finding it challenging to organize asynchronous clinical education for all your students?
Devin, I don't have any students.
Well, that's okay, because no matter the class size, from 10 to 10,000 students, we have the perfect solution for you.
VR Patients isn't just a virtual reality platform. It's an asynchronous learning tool, which means students can access it anywhere, anytime.
Exactly. They can jump into a VR simulation from their VR headset or even from their web browser. Clinical competency training doesn't have to be confined to a specific schedule or location anymore.
To learn more about how VR Patients can make learning more accessible and scalable, head over to vrpatients.com. That's vrpatients.com.
And if you don't have any students just like Connor, but you do have a VR headset, you can try it right now for free on the MetaQuest Store or Steam.